This episode of The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by Sip Coffee House 2 in Highland, Indiana on Jewett Avenue. Great coffee, lattes, smoothies, and more. Food and treats you will adore. Small town charm with big city selection. It's Sip Coffee House 2. If it's breakfast, brunch, or lunch you need, Les Cafe is the place to go, indeed. Open 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. 7 days a week. Les Cafe Pancake House, located in Highland, Indiana on Highway Avenue. Les Cafe, where less is more.
Hello, welcome to the show. We're coming to you from the Promise You Art House in Highland, Indiana, and that's the beautiful Highland, Indiana.
That's right.
May we add.
Right here on Kennedy Avenue in Highland.
And with us today, we have a guest who I've known for years because we actually worked at Valpo Schools together. And I want to tell a little story about that after I introduce you. Dorothy Graden.
Hi.
Who,
happy to be here.
Yeah, is artist, and since you were retired, has really stepped up your passion in art.
I have.
So welcome to our show.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to have you on. The last time Dorothy was on, it was an audio version of the show that went out on radio. Now this is more like three-dimensional type stuff, right?
Video coming up in the world here, yeah.
Well, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here. I've known Bill for a very long time, so.
Yeah. And a little story about Dorothy. She was a kindergarten teacher in Valpo at Northview Elementary.
Yes.
And every time I'd go through the buildings and check, see how things were, naturally I'd walk in and go, well, when am I going to get my whiteboard? Can you check on the printer? I'd walk into Dorothy's classroom and immediately she would say, children, Mr. Moran is here. I'm going to tell you what he does. He takes care of all the computers in Valparaiso schools. And all these kids were just looking up at me. So those are the times I remember from Valpo. It's like, being a tech director for a school district is not an easy gig. But always walking into your classroom is kind of like, oh wow, it's like a pressure relief. All these kids staring up at me, actually like, oh, he's cool, and little do they know, right?
Yeah, I would say he has a very important job. In fact, I remember once I asked you, I said, you know what? I said, you've got to help me email my class, that class that we're trying to connect to in Australia. Mm-hmm. And you helped me do that.
Yeah.
That was way back.
Oh, yeah. That was the infancy of email, actually.
It was. It was the infancy of email.
Oh, is that when you went on and it went?
Yeah, pretty close.
Mail. Back in those days, yes, I remember well.
So those are some great times, and now, gosh, look what you're doing. You're following your passion.
She's super famous.
I am.
We talked about this before the show. It's not following your passion, but It is. What is the new phrase you're coming up with?
Following your curiosity.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Because following your passion can be really intimidating for people. Mm-hmm. It's like, but I don't really have a passion. But then, what are you interested in? What do you really like? Are you interested in the British royalty? Are you interested in hiking? Are you interested in bugs? I mean, I can go to the dunes and sit there for an hour just looking around, and Christmas Day I found 2 bugs underneath the leaves. Mm-hmm. So it's just being curious about the world and being curious about what you like and following through with it rather than just saying, oh, I like that, and just letting it go. And that's pretty much how I ended up doing what I'm doing, just being curious.
And you've got 3, I guess you would call them hobbies, but you're extremely, you love them, and that's scuba diving, mm-hmm. and then hiking.
Yes.
And now what you're here for is art. Which is amazing.
And you combine your love of hiking and scuba diving with your art because it's very inspired by that.
Mm-hmm. All of it is.
Yes.
Very much so. In fact, if I'm doing a picture if I'm doing a painting from one of my hiking trips, usually I squeeze a fish here and there inside there. So I hide my scuba diving pictures inside of my hiking pictures.
Love that.
And my hiking pictures don't necessarily show mountains and, you know, canyons and valleys. What I do is I hike for rock art, which are petroglyphs and pictographs, which are ancient drawings and paintings on the canyon walls. And I go to really super remote sites that are basically impossible to find and take photographs of them, and that's how I get my inspiration. And then what those sites do, it's not just the photo, it's not just the pictograph, it's not just the rock art, but it's like, look at the space, look what these people were looking at, look at their view, you know, what's the spot that they're sitting in, you know, were there children running around, were they making grain, were the hunters coming in and marking on the walls what they were doing, were they having ceremony, were they declaring that was their territory? I've seen some sites that look like that. Some of them are celebrations, instructions on how to find water. And so all of these things I enter into my art, not just the pictures, but the site itself.
Yeah. So it's like almost trying to transverse back in time to try to interpret what's going on.
Yeah.
Because that's, you know, it's kind of, because that's the way their visual communication. That was it. They, you know, that's before the written language, and to try to figure all these, it's like a puzzle.
Yes.
And it's funny when you were saying about how to find water, you know, kind of a thing. It made me, all of a sudden I jumped back to when I was a kid and my grandmother telling me about the hobos that would walk in the area where it was very wooded, but there was still civilization not too far, and they would leave these little, almost like a hieroglyphic type of a thing to let people know, like, these people would give you food, or if you stop here there's water and things. And it made me think of that, you know, just the easy way of communicating without really using words.
Just symbols.
Yes.
Symbols on the curbs. I remember my mother telling me that they always came to our house. Before I was born, my mother said they'd always come to our house, and we wondered why. And then we looked out, she said we looked out on the curb, and there was a chalk mark on the curb, because they knew they could get a bologna sandwich at our house. So, but I mean, some of these sites that I see are 13,000 years old.
Right. Can you imagine that, 1,000 years from now, if someone's excavating and to see what all the communication that we have, like they'll pull up these railroad cars with all the, what they call it, taggings on them, and they'll be at St. Mark's in Glen Park and wipe away all the whitewash and see my work of art. And they'll pull up all the scheduled cars for serving 6:15 a.m. Mass and discovered I had more slots in that than any other altar boy, and they wondered why. Well, anyway, we're deviating from the topic at hand. So that is cool. I see. So you've got all your passions wound up, and they're interchanging, like they're blending together.
They do.
You're using, and so that's beautiful. And you do something else that I find absolutely extraordinary. And artists make, we do that, but to me, you make your own medium, right? You actually, the canvas, and I know I'm probably using the wrong terminology. You know, as close as I got to art was that piece of work that I left on the back of St. Mark's wall that someone's going to discover and think differently of me. But at any rate, so tell us about how you do that, because that is in itself an entire process.
Oh, absolutely. It's there is a paper studio in LaPorte, Indiana. It's called Hook Pottery and Paper. And Andrea Peterson is a professional paper maker. And her husband, John Hook, is a professional potter or ceramist.
Cool.
I mean, you really need to take your show out there, because they're a very interesting family. But about 3 days every summer, I rent the studio, and I make paper from cotton. So it's called cotton rag. And I pull sheets that are about 22 by 31 because I like working on that particular size. And then after I pull it, it's a white sheet of paper. It's not paper yet, it's just more like oatmeal, I guess you could say. And then I start pouring colors on top of it that also are made out of the cotton pulp that I've made ahead of time. And so when the paper's dry, I start with a sheet of paper that already has color on it. You know, most artists start with white paper. Well, I start with the paper that has the color on it already that I have put on. I've added stencils. I usually have something in mind that I'm going to do ahead of time. So I put colors where I want them. And so when I bring it to my studio, I have a kind of a general idea of what I want after the paper is all dry and I'm looking at it. And then I start looking at all the photographs that I've taken. I have thousands of photographs from my hiking trips. And then I go through the papers and it's like, okay, who wants to be on this paper? What spirit wants to be on this paper? What story? Yeah, it tells me what story do you want to tell? You know, do you want a story about your life? Do you want a story about a powerful spiritual image of some kind? You know, what kind of a story do you want me to tell? So most of my pictures tell stories. And what's interesting is, you know, I've hiked everywhere from the Rio Grande all the way up into central Montana. And so the pictographs, the rock art is different depending on where you go, depending on the geography, the time period, the culture of the people that did these original carvings. And so, you know, so if I want to do something that looks like Pecos River, I'll look at my Pecos River petroglyphs. If I want more bear kinds of powerful bear paw kinds of things, I'll look at my Montana photographs. If I want something kind of spiritual and spooky looking, I'll go to the Utah pictures. You know, depending on the time period, you know, they're all different.
You notice I haven't asked you about your Roswell, New Mexico pictures.
No, you have not.
I'm being good.
And I've been to New Mexico many times. I've seen lots of rock art there, and there's some great cliff dwellings in New Mexico too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. Beautiful. Just a little bit of question going back to your canvas or your medium that you put it on. How long does it take you to do that before you start pulling your pictures and ready to paint? How long does it just take to do the canvas part?
To make the paper?
Make the paper.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, when I go to Andrea's, and I usually rent the studio with a couple other artists because it's kind of expensive to rent the studio by yourself. But it takes. You can usually make about 9. I can pull about 9 sheets a day. So I usually work there for 3 days in a row, and I can actually watch my art develop in those 3 days.
Oh, wow.
It's really interesting because I'll start with one technique on the first day, and by the third day my technique is different and more evolved.
Wow.
So I usually walk away with about 27 sheets that get me through the winter, and then I'm back again, like I'm going back again in July. I just contacted Andrea about 2 days ago.
Right. No, I'm just so amazed because me being, you know, unknowledgeable about it, I just think, oh, you get a canvas from an art studio or somewhere and go and you're ready. No, you actually, it's like building it from scratch.
It is building it. And one thing I really, really like about the paper making is that I can actually create what a rock wall looks like. And I can't do that with acrylics or anything else. I can't do it with watercolors, can't do it. Oils can't do it. This paper making, depending on how you pour the colors on, you actually can create what the wall looked like. So
That's very cool.
it's
All right, so the method of your
really-
madness is that the way that
Yeah.
this is the way to do it then.
yeah, it's the only way to get
Yeah.
that look.
Plus,
Yeah.
plus your artwork is all yours. I mean, every bit of it is something you've created, which I think is genius.
Yeah, it's organic because the people back then, they just carved on the walls, the canyon walls, So I don't know, I feel closer to the people that did it because I'm making the paper myself.
Do you have any Native American blood in you?
I don't
You
think
know?
so.
No,
No,
it's just something
it's
that you-
Slovakia and England, so probably not, no.
Well, back there, the ancients that we used to did cave.
Well, they did the
Yeah.
same thing, though.
Yeah,
They did
they
a
did
lot
the
of
same thing, and-
hieroglyphics and stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
that.
so,
Yeah, rock art's been found on every continent
Yes.
except for Antarctica. So.
yeah. And I was watching a documentary showing the similarities are really scary and coincidental between some of the drawings.
It is.
Well, not
in
just
fact,
the drawings,
yes.
I mean, just even buildings and things like the pyramids.
Yeah,
Who
like
would
why
have
do we
thought
have
that
pyramids and
the same thought process of building a pyramid type of thing in South America,
the
and then
Aztecs
also
versus
having
the
it,
Egyptian?
yeah, or
That's
yeah,
Yeah, two completely
Yeah,
different. At
different
one
people
time
and
they
everything, but they
were
come up with
connected,
that.
but it's kind of interesting to see how similar the art and the buildings were.
It is really. In fact, I did a presentation at a conference in Moscow, and there were a lot of Siberian people that came to the conference.
Wow, my kindergarten teacher friend is doing things in Moscow.
She's really
now.
awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But anyway,
I haven't done anything in Moscow, just if anyone's wondering. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
But a lot of the Siberian people, after I did my presentation on the rock art, I had so many Siberian people come up to me and say, "We see the same thing in Siberia." And,
Wow, man.
And they showed me some photos, and they have the exact same, very close.
Interesting.
And
Let's go
they're
to Siberia.
oh,
Can we go to Siberia
well,
together?
I've been invited, so
See, there you
let's
go.
do it.
Let's go.
Now,
together.
you as a travel agent could go anywhere you want in the world.
Siberia is
and
way cool.
it is very
It
cool.
is very
very
all right,
cool.
so
very
wear a
cold.
jacket.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting
So you
at.
wear a jacket.
I've heard very many people, yeah, let's go to Siberia. That'd be a great vacation.
It would be.
What I thought was interesting too is their main concern was how do we protect
See,
it?
that's beautiful.
Because the government runs roads through it.
Yeah,
they do mining just like they do here.
Right.
And so their main concern was how
Let's
do
build
you
a pipeline
protect
and put
it?
it right through.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
beauty.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Well, before we get too much, we better start showing some of your art.
Oh,
People
sure.
probably wondering, what is the art? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Well,
I love that one.
thank you. I just did this one
I like.
just a couple months ago.
Yeah, see, this is where I saw this recently, and I told Dorothy before we went on video here that your art has gotten more grounded, and we'll explain that later.
Well, I don't know. What about this one?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, Bill has his own interpretation of
Yeah.
my art, and I did do a lot of black and whites for a while.
That's very
This
cool.
one's inspired from a site in Wyoming called Legend Rock, and it's near Thermopolis, Wyoming, and it's a public site, so anybody can go there and visit it.
That looks like a head, like a mask that they used to wear, maybe. And
It could, yeah. There are a lot of, yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff that looks like masks. This one is more of a celebration kind of one.
mhm.
And then this one actually is masks. Kind of shaman, thunder being kind of a masked one. And then this one. But the colors that you're seeing are the colors that I put on the original paper when I made it. And so I do use gouache, which is it's an opaque watercolor. So I can mask out parts of the...
Now, the drawings that you see, the stone drawings or whatever, are there any color to them at all, or are they just like a grayish?
Well, it depends on where you go. The ones that are painted are called pictographs, and the ones that are pecked or carved are called petroglyphs. And as a whole, they're called rock art. That's kind of like the common way to describe them. And there are areas, like in southern Texas, there's a place called Waco Tanks, and it's a public park, but you have to have a reservation to get in because there had been so much vandalism there that they have to protect it. So you can't go through Waco Tanks unless you're with a ranger. And mostly everything in Waco Tanks is painted, and it's absolutely awesome. It's just really beautiful.
And do you use that in some of your paintings, the colors that you see in those original rock?
I do. But I really love the color blue because I'm a scuba diver. And so most of the colors that I see out west are, because they're made from the minerals of the rock and from body fat and things like that. The only colors that you see out there mostly are white, rust, orange. That's pretty much it. Black from the soot, the soot that they can put on there, and those colors have binded to the rock, or they're bound to the rock, and so they're still there. But I love the color blue, and so I use a lot of blue in my petroglyphs and pictograph paintings. Like this one is mostly pictographs, but there's a lot of blue in it. And if you go to my website, you'll see a lot of blue.
Yeah, and some of these elements as well are what you see when you go diving.
Yes.
And so it's like a blend, if you will, right?
It's definitely a blend because this is a mask painting. I think I called it masks. But yet there's a
fishing
fish
right
in there. So I put fish in a lot of my pictures. And the color blue, I've had so many wonderful adventures underwater that a lot of my inspiration for the art comes from the ocean. And I mean, I've done quite a number of night dives.
Yeah. I so want to do that sometime.
Oh my gosh, it's just, and so I've started to put more glowing things in some of my pictures because when I did a night dive off of the Big Island in Hawaii a couple years ago, and the boat took us out to the pelagic part of the ocean, which drops down 8,000, 10,000 feet below you, and we jumped in the water. They tethered us to a rope so we wouldn't get lost. And we went down in the dark with flashlights. And at night, the pelagic part of the ocean, this biomass of animals comes up to the surface to feed. And if you look down, it looks like you're looking at the bottom, but you're not. You're looking at this biomass. And then all these creatures start flying around. Well, they're not flying, they're swimming, I guess, but they're neon and they glow and they're like fluorescent and they move and they twirl and it's totally magical. It's just really magical. And so sometimes if I do a really dark painting, I'll put a lot of that kind of thing in there with the glowing creatures.
Yeah, we just had someone on that told us about his sailing around the world. And one of the things that kind of intrigued me during the whole adventure that he talked about, and there was a lot, is that when he was in South Africa, when he was going through South Africa, he saw these orbs, these fluorescent orbs in the water, and then he would see them starting to fly. And so what is that? And so when he got back to one of the ports that he stopped at, he was in a bar and started describing to these guys, I think they're photographers from National Geographic, I think they were, something like that. And they said, no, those aren't flying orbs, those are a jellyfish that these birds are coming down and plucking because he can't see the birds at night. He sees these orbs floating in at night because that is a completely different environment.
It's like being in an alien world.
Well, it is.
It
is.
is.
The ocean is an alien world. We know more about the moon than we know about our oceans.
It is. And the bioluminescence is everywhere at night. It's just everywhere.
I won't ask how comparatively you know that it's like an alien world, and we won't ask that, right? Because I told you I wouldn't get into that. Some of the just the different things that you see there, just, And again, I'm drawn back to wanting to take scuba lessons and doing night diving, because that's just got to be completely different.
It is. Well, we have a dive club that meets in Valpo, so you know, you're welcome to come in.
Have you done the cenotes in Mexico?
I don't know because they're cold. And I'm not much of a cave diver. I did a little bit of cave diving in Maui, off the coast of Maui, went through the lava caves. But I like to be able to see light at the end. And the cenotes don't have a lot of light at the end. You know, they're not real safe. You really have to know how to be a cave diver to go inside of those.
Because I've snorkeled them, and I saw people going down and thought, how fun, because who knows what you're going to find down there. You know,
I know.
the ancient civilizations that have been there forever, the Mayans and everything. You're just like, who knows what's down there.
Let me ask you, just out of curiosity, I know you have cameras that you take with you when you go hiking. Do you have gear to take down when you go diving as well?
Well, I don't take cameras down with me. You know, there's lots of gear you have to put on to get down there, but you know, like I've got my compass and my console, which tells me how deep I am, and you know, all that kind of stuff, and how much air I have left, and all that. But a lot of people in the dive club go down with basically studio equipment underwater, and they take amazing videos and amazing photographs that they share with us, which is great. So I do get those kinds of pictures.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
I was just curious because I know that's what you like to bring back to your studio. But,
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to move on to is you are going to be in some shows coming up. You're going to be in, you have some displays coming up.
I do.
Share
I do
those
have
with
some.
us?
Yeah, sure. In January, late January into February, the Area Artists Association is having a group show at the Lebesnick Center
One of my favorite
in Michigan
places.
Cities. One of my favorite places too. I just love the Lebesnick Center. And then this place called David's Deli in New Buffalo called me last week, and they want to do a solo show for me in March.
How fun!
It's right off that main
It's off,
street,
yeah,
right?
it's on the
Yeah,
main
yeah.
Whitaker Street, I think.
Yeah, and they have like this area out back where they have benches and stuff. Yeah,
There's a gallery in there,
Yep.
so they're doing a solo show for me there. I've got a solo show coming up in Grand Rapids in April.
Nice.
And also there's a group show in April at Buchanan, Michigan, that I'll be part of. The Depot in Beverly Shores does a 5x5, 5 inches by 5 inches show every spring
cool.
as a fundraiser, and that's in May, and I'll be in that. And then they're doing a solo show for me in July, the Depot. And then my one really big show that I'm so excited about is
We are too.
is I'm going to do a solo show at the Cultural Center in Chicago.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing.
Installation September 23rd goes into like second week of November.
Yeah. You get us those dates, I'll make sure that it's up on the posting. But if they can get the dates. Do you have those on your Facebook page or your website?
On my website, dorothygraden.com.
Okay, all right, we'll get people there, show them a link.
Yeah, and then if you want to buy something, you can my brother set up this new website for me called dorothygraden-buy.com. And so he set up where you can buy originals and prints, and I'm going to be changing those out. So
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
but
I was thinking the one print that I know I have of yours is mostly blue. So now I understand why it had so much blue in it.
It's the
how pretty
ocean.
it was. That's cool. I love
right.
it.
But do we have time for me to tell you an interesting story?
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
of course.
yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
okay. So last May, I went on a camping, hiking, petroglyph hunting trip with some friends. It was my one friend who is a Hopi, and she lives on the Hopi Reservation in northern Arizona. And she is an elder, and she still lives the Hopi way. They have lots of celebrations and lots of rituals during the year. They have lots of, I can't call them holidays, but there are days when they all gather together to do the kachina dances and that kind of thing. And so she she insists that they still plant the corn the Hopi way. She has a granddaughter that she's teaching to speak Hopi because she's carrying on the Hopi tradition and the Hopi ways, which I think is wonderful that she's doing that. And so she invited a couple Hopi friends, and then we had a couple rangers from Texas that joined us. So there were about 6 of us on this trip. And so we went to all these different sites, and we camped in camp. We kind of created our own campground, basically. But we went to all these different sites, and we were up in 9 Mile Canyon, which is near Price, Utah.
Okay.
And I had been there before, but not the way we did it. We were camping, and as we're going up into the canyon, I'm looking around, and it's May, right? And so I thought, that looks like snow over there. And that looks like snow, and that looks like snow. We were up 10,000 feet, and it was freezing up there. And of course, we camped in tents, and I froze all night long, and woke up in the morning with sheets of ice covering our tents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really cold. But anyway, that's not the story. The story is that we were going down the road, and it started to hail really hard.
Ooh.
And I had seen a lot of the sites along the road before, because it's 9 Mile Canyon is really famous for petroglyphs. And all of a sudden, one of the Hopi guy pointed and said, "That looks like a sun symbol." And we went over there and looked at it, and it was a sun symbol with 2 figures on either side of it. And we would not have seen that if it hadn't been hailing, because it was the carving was tan and the rock was tan, and the only thing that brought out the picture was the hail, because it was wet.
Oh, boy.
And
See, the universe knew what it was doing.
well, it
Yeah.
did, because he got so excited because he discovered it, and he was a member of the Sun Clan, and so he knew that was there for him.
Yeah,
He knew it was there
absolutely.
for him, and then we went by it 2 days later, and you couldn't even see it because it wasn't raining or anything.
Yeah.
So it was meant to it was meant to show when it wanted to show, which I thought was pretty interesting.
That's very cool.
Mhm.
I
And
love
that's
that.
what you run into, when you go camping, hiking, you get yourself immersed in nature.
It's magical. Nature is magical.
It is, yeah.
I was on a scuba trip in November
Mhm.
in Cozumel.
Oh, yeah,
It's beautiful down there.
yeah.
But the currents were absolutely wild. They had to close they had to close the harbor the first day we were there. The second day we thought, well, let's go on out. The dive boat was going out, so we decided to go out. And the currents, well, another thing too is there were 3 really beautiful reefs that were closed because they said they had bacteria come up from the southern Caribbean,
Okay.
and so the reefs are starting to disappear, which is really sad.
Yeah.
So we're trying to see as much as we can see before they're totally gone. But the currents were so bad. There were currents going that direction, and down.
Oh, boy.
And so there were these little tornado things that were coming up, bringing the sand up from the bottom and swirling around like so it was like being in a snowstorm with a whiteout. And when you're in a snowstorm, in a whiteout, you're driving down the road and you can barely see the lights coming towards you, the headlights. Well, the dive master was maybe on the other side of the street here, and he's going like this. He was trying to get us all to gather around him because we were going to abort the dive because it was getting too crazy.
Yeah.
And one of the guys was over there to the right of me, and he hit a down current and dropped 30 feet in 3 seconds.
Holy
Man.
cow!
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a part of,
Like being in an
Yeah.
airplane.
That's the
Yeah,
part
yeah,
of
that's-
diving that you don't want
Yeah,
to hear about if
yeah.
you want to be a
That's
scuba diver.
crazy.
And so we all made it to the dive master, and we went up to the boat and got out of it. But the rest of the week was like that, so I didn't get that many dives in. So There are things, but you have to be ready for those things.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And
Well,
you
one of
can't panic. You just can't.
Yeah, and one of the things I didn't realize until I was down like in Riviera Maya one time, and I didn't realize that was the second largest coral reef in the world. That the Great Barrier Reef in Australia is first, and then that's the second largest. I was amazed. I also didn't realize that that whole Yucatan Peninsula and everything supposedly was created when the big meteor that killed all the dinosaurs hit. And that's what caused all that, and why there's cenotes and everything. So, I mean, the cool history and stuff, and going down there would be just amazing.
Yeah, I can get pretty nerdy down there for sure. You know.
Oh man, I'm getting jealous just sitting here listening to all this. Boy, well, man, I tell you, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming on. Just you're one of the artists that it's the depth, what you do from putting the cotton and to its finishing touches is just, I sit here just out of amazement. So thank you for sharing.
Plus, we just really like you because you're awesome. So.
Yeah,
well, thank you so much for having
I look at what I did with
Anytime.
my retired life compared to you're putting on talks in Moscow, you're diving, and I'm putting on a podcast.
Oh man, this podcast is awesome. Well, you know what? You're following your passion
That's right.
Yeah.
and your curiosity.
That's right.
And we're going to do some things that are kind of interesting. We were talking about doing some travel shows and getting up into the other areas where people listen to us, and up in the Michigan and into Chicago and up into Wisconsin.
We're
So
following our creativity too.
Yeah.
And you're curious about people and their stories.
Oh yeah, we
And so
love it.
that's your
That's
following
it.
that.
Yeah, we love talking to people about what they
Yes.
do and what they, what the paths that they're passionate about following. And boy, it's been an adventure.
And hopefully people listening and watching are being inspired and thinking of things to do creatively by watching what we do.
I'm
Yeah.
hoping, and the other thing too I've learned, because sometimes I'll sit in my studio and I'll be like, okay, what am I gonna do? And I get this feeling of fear sometimes that I don't know where to start, or where do I put my first mark on the paper. And the answer is just to do it. You can't wait for inspiration. You just have to just put that first mark on the paper, and then all of a sudden, they always say, if you don't know where to start cleaning your house, just make your bed. Start with something that you can do.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll just start with one mark on the paper that I know I can do, and then it starts to flow. It starts to flow from there.
Yeah, because sometimes the danger for you psychologically is staying in square one because you're so afraid to go on, and it's better to go on.
You
And,
have to just be open to the possibilities.
It is, and I had a friend that was wanted to go to London. She'd been there before, but she'd been through some health things, and she was afraid to go. And she had been putting the trip off, and I said, you know what? I said, just the only way you're going to get over your fear is just to go. And she's like, I don't know if I can.
Book
And I
that
said,
plane ticket, baby.
book the plane ticket. Just book the plane ticket and go. And then I talked to her last week, and she went. Yeah, she went.
One of my favorite places to go to. So,
Yeah, and she said it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And she said it was just overcoming the fear.
Yeah.
And so that's important, I think.
well, before we go, I have one question to ask you. Do you have any major plans, or maybe one more thing on your bucket list that you want to share with us? Something that,
That
because
is.
listening to you, it's like, okay, what could there be? I mean, really, you've been diving, you've been up to Moscow, down to South America, and oh my word.
Well, that's why I don't have a bucket list. I don't ever.
Because you do it. I mean, you're just.
I've just
it's-
never had one. I
Yeah.
had a friend. Well, Kim Hamas.
Oh yeah, she's been on our show too, talking about her.
She's an author now. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so.
I will tell you, I'm an elementary school teacher. The stuff I've read, some of her books, it really kept me up at night. And I began thinking about when I was in her classroom with all the nice elementary kids, and read her stories about murder and detailed blood stains, and I'm like, ooh, Kim, where did this come from?
I know, I asked her.
I think she and I would get along really well.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a forensic files freak.
Are
I
you
like,
really?
I love all the crime story
Oh,
things
you should
and all
talk
that
to Kim
stuff.
about
Yeah, I love all
that.
that.
Yeah, you wonder darkness is in all of us that comes out once in a while.
Just a different way to
All that,
express
is
it.
this from teaching mostly, or I don't
No.
I don't know, but yeah. Well, the bucket list thing. So anyway, she's like, "You want to go to Africa with me?" I'm like, "Okay, I'll go." So we went to Kenya with a friend. You know, that's the thing is, you know, you just have to be able to just switch what you think you want to do to something that sounds, oh, I'm curious about that.
That's right. And
You
be
know?
open to all those possibilities.
And be
like we
open.
said, just be open to the possibilities of what's out there.
Yeah.
Like my sister, all of a sudden, she's like, I want to go to one of these places in Africa where the elephants just walk right through the lobby of these places and see these animal sanctuaries. Okay, let's go do it.
Yeah,
So
that's
we're
what she-
planning on doing that.
Are you
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. She wants to go, and
You're
that's
following
something.
your
Yes.
curiosity.
That's what I do. That's why I
That's
love
exciting.
travel.
That's the way.
That was the main reason I started with that, was doing my DNA and finding out where I come from, and that was my thing, is I'm going to go to every country that I'm a part of, that's a part of who I am and a part of who my family and my journey has been. And that's where that all started.
Yeah, that's what you have to do. And then I've got this other friend that says, "You want to go to India?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." But I don't know if we'll go, but it's kind of, it's,
If you do, I want to hear
it's back
about
here
it.
right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
I want to hear about
Well,
it.
yeah, if you talk to Kim, give her our best, and tell her I call her Stephen King Jr. Yeah. So yeah, but that's amazing, and that both of you really. I mean, she wanted to be an author, and she followed her dreams, and wow. And how many books is she on now?
I think she's writing 6. I mean, she's always writing 6 books. So, but I think she has 4 that are finished. And her author name is Kim DeSalvo.
Yeah, right.
Which is her maiden name actually, but
Yeah.
yeah, and then I asked, I'm going to see her tonight, but I asked her last week, you know, which book she was working on or which one she was finishing, and she started talking about one that I hadn't heard of yet. So she's always got a couple,
Yes,
2,
that's
3,
something
5 going.
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, but she's following her dream.
Now
following
she's in
that.
middle school. They're probably getting darker, Mike. Yeah, they can. Go, Lord.
So we're challenging everybody out there to start following your creativity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And when you do, let us know about it. We want to
Right.
hear.
Whatever you're curious about.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to even have it as a passion. It could become a passion. But it's curious. I know sometimes when I go under the water and I get a little nervous about something, I think, okay, look at something and start concentrating on it. You know, so I'll just look at a piece of coral or something and just think, oh, there's an animal, and I get over my fear by being curious. So it works. It
Yep.
really works.
Yeah. Well, we better wrap things up here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we could
Okay.
sit here
But
and
this has
talk
been
with
a
Dorothy
pleasure.
Oh, this is so
forever.
much fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's been great having you on, and we'll get you on here again. In fact, we need to
Absolutely.
do one of those shows.
Well,
I
we're
think.
hoping, to get a
We
couple
may
more
be there,
maybe.
the one at the Cultural Center, which
For
is
sure.
one of my favorite
Definitely,
places.
for sure, we'll do that
One of
one.
my
Oh,
favorite
we-
artists in one of my favorite places. How can we not go?
Yeah.
That-
We have to do it together.
Yeah.
A lot of these
Yeah.
places are
Yeah, that's gonna be
places I
fun.
love, so I might have to go to all of them.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
just talk, we can talk afterwards.
Yes.
Well, with that, thank you very much for
Thank you,
coming on our
Dorothy.
show.
Thank you so
It's
much.
been a pleasure. And with that, we'll say goodbye for now.
Bye, everybody.
This episode of The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by Sip Coffee House 2 in Highland, Indiana on Jewett Avenue. Great coffee, lattes, smoothies, and more. Food and treats you will adore. Small town charm with big city selection. It's Sip Coffee House 2. If it's breakfast, brunch, or lunch you need, Les Cafe is the place to go, indeed. Open 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. 7 days a week. Les Cafe Pancake House, located in Highland, Indiana on Highway Avenue. Les Cafe, where less is more.